It was supposed to be just another quiet interview, a few smiles, a few memories, until Keanu Reeves, with a voice barely louder than a whisper, spoke Matthew Perry's name. The air in the studio shifted. A ghost of regret flickered behind his eyes. What followed wasn't planned, and what he revealed no one was ready to hear. Oh, and before we continue, tell us what's your favorite Keanu Reeves movie of all time. Let us know in the comments. The studio lights flared up in familiar brilliance. The crowd erupted in applause as the camera panned across the set, revealing the host. Charismatic, grinning, the kind of man who could pull laughter out of thin air before even opening his mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, he beamed, today we have a very special guest, a cinematic icon, one of the most beloved men in Hollywood, the one and only Keanu Reeves. The audience rose with thunderous cheers. Keanu stepped onto the stage with his usual quiet grace, wearing that soft, modest smile the world had come to recognize. He waved, shook the host's hand warmly, and took his seat. Nothing seemed out of place, but there was something, a tension, subtle but there. The set was just as it had always been, the host's desk, the guest chair, cameras gliding smoothly from angle to angle. The audience chuckled at the light banter, the behind-the-scenes anecdotes, the eternal memes. Sad Keanu, you're breathtaking. It was all present, and yet in the corner of the desk, sitting there with quiet insistence, was an envelope. White, unmarked, closed. It hadn't been part of the script. The host had noticed it moments before the taping began. Production swore they hadn't put anything there. Still, it remained, and Keanu had looked at it 3 times already. You good, Keanu? The host asked, voice light but tinged with subtle concern. Keanu smiled, that serene, slightly faraway smile. Yeah, he said, but his gaze was distant, as if listening to something only he could hear. The host moved on, changing topics, movies, action train, and quirky set stories, but the audience felt it. Something was off. Keanu was holding something that didn't belong in a late-night interview. Time moved forward, the questions breezed by, the rhythm relaxed, but the mood never quite settled. There was an undercurrent beneath it all, a quiet hum of unspoken weight. Then during a lull in the conversation, Keanu's eyes drifted back to the envelope. He didn't say a word, just looked at it calmly, like it carried an answer to a question no one else had thought to ask. The host's eyes followed his for a split second, then quickly looked away, pretending not to notice. He cracked a joke. The audience laughed, but there was a flicker of nervousness in it now. Keanu reached out, touching the envelope lightly with his fingertips. He didn't open it, didn't move it, just touched it. Like someone who recognizes something long buried, the host cleared his throat. So, wanna play a quick game? One of those fun lightning rounds you're so good at? Keanu didn't answer right away. Then he looked up, and everything shifted. It wasn't a word or a gesture, it was the look in his eyes. Something heavy, a tiredness that didn't come from lack of sleep, a silence rich with things unspoken. The audience stilled, laughter faded, even the air seemed to freeze. Keanu took a long breath, didn't speak, but his gaze held the weight of something remembered, something not quite forgiven. The host hesitated, almost asked a question, but didn't. Keanu looked back down at the envelope, touched it again gently, and then, when he raised his eyes, the studio was completely silent. The host tried to steer back to safer ground. Let's talk about your career, he said, voice bright but strained. Any moments where someone surprised you? Maybe mentioned you in a way that caught you off guard? Keanu sat still, his fingers lingering near the envelope. He nodded slowly. Yeah, he said, voice low. There was one. The audience leaned in, the host's smile tightening. Okay, now I have to know. Who? Keanu hesitated just a moment, then said it. Matthew Perry. The name landed like a stone in still water. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The host blinked, caught off balance. Matthew Perry, he repeated, cautious. Keanu nodded. Yeah, the moment wasn't new to the internet. Months, maybe years ago, a line from Perry's memoir had sparked a firestorm. Why is it that the original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us? The words had stung, circling the globe, fueling outrage and memes. Keanu hadn't responded publicly then, and most assumed he'd let it go. But now, in this studio, the weight of that moment resurfaced. I didn't know about it at first, Keanu said, his voice calm but raw. Someone showed me a screenshot. I read it and he paused, looking down. It hurt. The host shifted, unsure. That must have been tough to hear. Keanu nodded, not for show, but as if reliving it. Yeah, but not how people thought. I wasn't angry. I was confused. Why would he say that? What kind of pain makes someone write something like that about someone who never hurt them? The audience was silent, not out of shock, but recognition. Keanu's voice softened. I didn't clap back, didn't make a statement. Silence felt more honest. The host treaded lightly. It blew up, right? People called for cancellation, the whole thing. Keanu shrugged faintly. Yeah, he apologized publicly, said it was random, no intent. But what no one knew, he paused, eyes scanning the room. We spoke after that. The studio went still, the revelation sinking in. You mean he reached out? The host asked, leaning forward. Keanu nodded. A few weeks later, at an industry event. Not a big thing. A private memorial for someone we both knew. I didn't know he'd be there, but when I saw him, I knew he'd say something. The host's voice was gentle. What did he say? Keanu's gaze drifted, replaying the memory. He didn't start with sorry. He said, I don't know if I have the right to come over here. I just stood there waiting because I could see it was costing him something. Matthew Perry had approached nervous. Not the polished star, but a man frayed at the edges. He wasn't defending the line, Keanu said. He was confessing. He talked about River Phoenix, how much he missed him, how he felt guilty for being here when others weren't. He looked at me and said, I thought it would hurt less to use your name than mine. Keanu's voice was steady but tender. I realized he wasn't angry at me. He was grieving, and it twisted into words he couldn't take back. The host swallowed hard. Did you forgive him? Keanu nodded. Before he asked. I saw the weight he was carrying. Not the backlash, but something deeper. Something that sat in his chest for years. The audience was moved, not by drama, but by the quiet truth of it. I told him I understood, Keanu continued. Not everything, but enough. Enough to know pain distorts people, turns compassion into confusion. He paused. Then he gave me something. Keanu reached into his jacket, pulling out a small weathered bookmark, frayed ribbon at the end. The camera zoomed in, embroidered in uneven stitches. Even the shadows have meaning. He gave me this, Keanu said, holding it up. Said he didn't know why, but he wanted me to have it. The host was silent. Keanu continued, voice lower. He also gave me a note, handwritten. I didn't read it right away, kept it in a drawer for months. He pulled out a folded paper, edges soft from time. I've never read it aloud before, he said, unfolding it carefully. If I ever disappear again, Keanu read, voice barely above a whisper. Remember this. Pain distorts the best in us, but it doesn't erase it. The studio was silent, the words sinking deep. I didn't understand it then, Keanu said, folding the paper. It stayed with me like a splinter. The host asked softly, did you talk again? Keanu shook his head. A few texts, a glance at an event, but nothing like that night. His voice tightened. I didn't know it'd be our last real conversation. Keanu's eyes lowered. Almost a year later, I was on set when I got the news. Matthew had died. The audience was still, the weight palpable. I didn't cry, didn't speak. I just sat thinking about that night, that bookmark, that note. He held the paper up. I finally understood what he meant. He wasn't just talking about himself. He was talking about all of us, how we're misunderstood, broken, but still carry something good. The host's voice was quiet. Did it change how you grieved him? Keanu nodded. I mourned the man who gave me this, who stood trembling, asking to be seen as more than his worst moment. The host gestured to the envelope on the desk. Is that connected? Keanu looked at it, fingers hovering. I didn't think so at first. But after Matthew passed, I started noticing things. How moments align when you're not ready. He opened the envelope, revealing a torn, yellowed paper with familiar handwriting. Even the shadows have meaning. Someone found this in a box of props from a documentary we both worked on, Keanu said. It showed up today of all days. He smiled faintly. The universe isn't subtle. Keanu leaned forward, addressing the audience. We don't talk enough about grief, how it's love that didn't finish his sentence. Forgiveness isn't always about them, it's about letting go of the pain you carry. He glanced at the note. Matthew didn't want to be remembered for that quote. He wanted to be remembered for trying, for surviving. The host nodded. That's the hardest part, isn't it? Trying. Keanu looked up. And yet he did every day, even when he couldn't. The interview ended, but the moment lingered. Backstage, the crew was quiet, some teary-eyed. Social media erupted. Leo Keanu Speaks trended, clips of the bookmark and note going viral. But Keanu didn't check his phone. He rode his motorcycle home, the bookmark in his pocket, the note tucked away. The next day, a teacher in Chicago shared the clip with her students teaching empathy over anger. A retiree in Oregon wrote, "I forgave someone today because of you." A teen posted a drawing of the bookmark captioned, "Shadows have meaning." Keanu, in his quiet way, kept moving, visiting a children's hospital, supporting a grief charity, living the kindness he spoke of. The envelope's mystery faded, but its message didn't. It wasn't about the quote or the headlines. It was about two men, flawed and human, finding a moment of truth. And for everyone watching, it was a reminder. Don't wait to say what matters. Forgive, even imperfectly. Love before it's too late.